go. That should go away in a second. And, all right. Okay, so I'm Amy Birch. I'm a traffic engineer and consultant that works with NDOT to facilitate the traffic calming program. So I'm a professional traffic engineer. With me, we have Carter Schmidt, who is also with the consultant team working on this traffic calming program for the whole city. So we're excited to be here to talk to you specifically about the project and proposal for your street, Hickory Park Drive. But also tell you more about the program and how it works and the process moving forward. If you're here joining us online, feel free to type your questions in the chat box. Carter is monitoring that and we'll be able to get to those. And I think there's speakers in the room. We might be able to hear you if you unmute yourself and want to ask a question. But we're going to go through a lot of information and just feel free to ask questions as we move along. So first off, what is traffic calming? What does that mean exactly? The neighborhood street traffic calming program that Nashville uses and has is really to address residential streets, neighborhood streets. And we use physical solutions to slow traffic down. And we're really focused on speed reduction through this program. The 3 E's of traffic calming are education. So that's educating the public about the reasons we want people to drive slower, because it's safer, fewer crashes, lives saved. Also, there's enforcement, the 2nd E, that's working with the police department and what they do to curb speeding. And then engineering, and that's really what this program does, is we focus on the engineering. How do we modify the street to create behavioral changes and physically slow traffic down on residential streets. And really the main focus of this program really lies in the safety and vision zero realm. This diagram here is showing national data about the survivability of a pedestrian if they're struck by a vehicle at these various speeds. So at 25 miles per hour, a pedestrian has a survivability rate of about 89%. But then as that speed goes up, as the vehicle speed goes up to 45 miles per hour, a pedestrian's survivability goes down to 35%. So that's crucial. We're trying to mitigate that through physical measures on residential streets. This is a neighborhood street program, like I've said, and we just want to demonstrate how much interest there is in this program. This map on the right is of the county, and all those purple lines represent streets that have requested traffic calming throughout the county. So as you can see, there's a lot of demand for this program. As of our last selection, the selection that this street was selected for, there were 464 streets that wanted traffic calming, that had requested traffic calming. This program currently, we select about 25 streets every 6 months, so 50 streets a year. So we're slowly but surely biting into that need for traffic calming on residential streets, but there's still a great demand. So we have a process in which we select those streets, because we can't, we have to have a data-driven process to know where the need is greatest and how we can address those streets first. Yes. Yes, so we look at a street-by-street basis. So the program or the application has, I think, opportunity to request streets for anywhere from 1 to 4 streets. So some applications have more streets listed and requested, and some just have one street. But we look at a street-by-street basis, not just the full application. So Hickory Park Drive is the street that was selected, and that's the street we're here to talk about. But was it Shire that was asked about? Shire, if it was requested, it remains on the list and will be evaluated in next rounds. So this prioritization process, how did we get from 464 streets to this 26 streets that were selected in February, or I think it was February when we selected these. We have 5 main criteria that we look at, and it's very data driven. We go out and we take the applications, all the streets that were requested, and we collect data on those streets. And we're looking at vehicle speed data. We go out and physically measure the speed on all these streets, and compare that to that desired speed of 25 miles per hour. And that makes up 45% of the score. This is based on a 100-point score. Then we're also looking at volume. We're measuring volume, and we have some criteria, some thresholds about what type of streets are appropriate for traffic calming based on volume. So some streets that are carry a whole lot of traffic volume, this toolbox does not address that. You know, like your Bell Road and those bigger streets like that. Harding Place, those aren't streets that are appropriate for traffic calming. So we have some volume thresholds, but volume is part of the criteria as well. So 25 points are part of the prioritization associated with volume. Then we also look at trip destinations. Are there parks and community centers near your street? Places where we think pedestrians from the neighborhood would be wanting to walk to, libraries and places like that, schools. And that makes up 5% of the score. And then we look at non-driver accommodations as well. So does the street have sidewalks or not? So streets that don't have sidewalks may get, they would get higher score for that criteria. And as well as streets with bikeways. So streets that we intend for people to be using on bikes, that's part of the scoring criteria. Proximity to bus routes or streets that have bus routes on it. You know, we would expect pedestrians to be going to and from those bus stops on the street. So that's also part of our criteria, and that gets 15% of the score. Then we have a vulnerable user injury fatality that we look at. So we go back and we looked at the last 10 years of pedestrian crash data. And if there was a pedestrian injury or fatality on that street, there's points associated with that. So it's a very rigorous data-driven process, but that's how we are able to identify which streets have the greatest need. So, yes. Which Bombadil Lane. I'm not sure about that specifically, but at the end of this presentation, we have the link to the website, the traffic calming website, and you can easily look up on that map there. You can zoom in and look and see if it's there, and if not, we have application windows twice a year as well, because we select twice a year, so there'll be an opportunity to make that request an application. All right, so let's start talking more about Hickory Park Drive. That's the program and how we got here. That's how your street was selected. And the street specifically is Hickory Park Drive between Rivendell Court and the end of the street. So that was the section of the street that was requested for traffic calming. So that's where we collected the data. That's where we studied, and that's the set of the street or section of the street that we're focused on with this project. This street is it's a local street. It's a residential street. It's not one of those higher tier streets. So it's a candidate for traffic calming. When we measured the speed on Hickory Park Drive, we measured it at 40 miles per hour, where the speed limit is posted at 25. And that's the 85th percentile speed. That's the speed that 85% of the traffic is going 40 miles per hour or below. But 15% of the traffic that we measured was actually going above 40 miles per hour. So, you know, you probably see and witness cars probably going faster than 40 because there is some traffic going even above that speed. The daily volume of traffic on Hickory Park was just over 2,000 cars a day. So that's the both directions of travel over a 24-hour period on a typical day. Then some other characteristics about the street. It's pretty wide. It's 37 feet wide, I think, of pavement, plus you've got curb and gutter on this section of the street. So that lends itself to just feel very wide and open, probably. There's also sidewalk on both sides, which is really great, at least on this section of the street. You've got sidewalk on both sides. That's really awesome. And then there's bike lanes striped in some sections of the street, and then there's use of on-street parking in other sections of this street. So that's some of the criteria we look at as we try to develop a plan for the street. And this is just a map showing the section that we're talking about. And it's adjacent to the Mill Creek Greenway, which is certainly a pedestrian attractor from the neighborhood. So let's now talk about our toolkit. What tools do we have in our toolbox to address speeding? Because 40 miles per hour is a great deal higher than 25. So the tool that we use the most, because it's so effective, people really like it, are speed cushions. These are easy to implement and are appropriate for a lot of streets. There's some streets that they're not appropriate for, but a lot of these residential streets, it's a good tool. And these are physical devices. They're drilled into the pavement. They create vertical curvature in the street, so that drivers, as they're passing over them, need to slow down to comfortably drive over them, and they physically require you to slow down. We like these devices for a number of reasons, but one is because they still they have less impact to emergency vehicles, those response, because they have the gaps, as you can see in the pictures. We can configure them in a multitude of ways based on what the characteristics of that street are. So, every street might be a little different, but we can put them in sets of 2 or 3, really wide streets, even 4, maybe. But they're rubber devices and they're modular, so we can create a varying range of lengths. But they're 6 feet wide, which is wide enough that a passenger vehicle still can't like straddle them and miss them. But those emergency vehicles that have a slightly wider wheelbase, they're not as affected when they drive over them. But they're still effective for those passenger vehicles. We pair these with warning signs. That picture in the top left has one of those orange, yellow warning signs that says speed cushions, and it also has an advisory speed plaque below it that says 20 miles per hour. And we'll pair those with each set of cushions to give drivers warning of the devices. They also have the pavement markings on them so that they're reflective at night, those white markings, and show the direction of travel over them. And so just depending on the striping on the street, they may have the arrows, or they may have the one in the center line there. And then this picture on the bottom right also shows a set of 3 cushions paired with the white flexible delineator post. And we use those a lot of times paired with bike lanes to keep drivers from trying to go around the devices and enter the bike lane, because we don't want that. Or places where we have wide shoulders or on-street parking, we can use those as a tool with these devices to mitigate that tendency that some drivers might try to go around them. So that's speed cushions. Now, speed tables are made of similar material, this rubber material, but they're formed in a different way. So instead of having the gaps that allow the emergency vehicles to straddle them, they are fully across the roadway, and they are also longer across in the direction of travel, so that they're flat on top. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Yes, lengthwise they are longer, and so they're appropriate on typically higher classification streets than your local streets, like this one. And in both cases, these devices are 3 inches high. So over the height of the road, they're 3 inches high. So they'll ramp up and then back down. So these measures, NDOT has done some data collection recently on deployments of these type of measures, because we want to know how are these what's the effect of these locally. So I think it was six streets that we've measured this data and compared the before and after speeds. We've seen a considerable decrease in speeding on the streets. So the graph on the left is showing the average speed comparison. So the bar on the far left is the before, and that says we had an average of 31 miles per hour on these streets. And then after they were installed, we got an average speed of 22 miles per hour. So that's really great reduction in speeding. Then the graph on the right is the 85th percentile speed that I talked about earlier. So that one, the before and after is before 37 miles per hour, and the after is 25 miles per hour. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this this more appropriate residential speed on residential streets. And this specific study of the before and after is of the 6x7 length cushions. And NDOT's going to continue to monitor these devices so that we have good data to tell you how effective they are. But this is what we're seeing for the ones that we've been installing lately. Also in our toolbox are radar feedback signs. These are the signs that will show your speed as you are approaching the radar sign. And it's a good reminder for some drivers. Some drivers just may not realize how fast they're going as compared to the speed limit. And we are seeing in similar studies, before after studies, that there's an average reduction of about 6 miles per hour with these devices. So we often use these in places that we can't use the vertical devices, or that the community doesn't want the vertical devices. So we have that option that's not that physical device, but and they are effective. All right, we also do things with pavement markings. When we have a wide street that maybe doesn't have any pavement markings, can add some white edge lines to narrow the roadway, or create a little shoulder there. And then this is a picture of traffic circles that we have done in some locations, but you got to have all the right characteristics of an intersection. These are devices, circular devices installed in the middle of the intersection. And so it needs to be a really wide intersection where that would happen, so that cars can still navigate around them, but it creates that horizontal deflection in the road, so that as you go through the intersection, you need to slow down to navigate around this device. And you drive around them like roundabouts, essentially. Also, with pavement markings and these white delineators, we've installed some bulb outs, just painted bulb outs at intersections to narrow the intersection and create that visual narrowness and slowness through an intersection. And chicanes are, we typically would do this with paint as well, but where we can create some curvature in a straight street by alternating parking from side to side of the street usually. And we do that with paint and the delineators. An example of that in Nashville is Fairfax Avenue. It's been like that for a long time. That's up near Vanderbilt in that neighborhood. But again, similar to the traffic circles, you need to have the right conditions to be able to create that type of thing. But we just like to show all of the tools that we use to everyone. So I think that's it on our toolbox. So we do the vertical measures with the cushions and tables. We do some striping things and signage with the radar feedback sign. Yes. Speed bumps. Okay, that's a good question. So he's asking about speed bumps. We don't do speed bumps in nomenclatures, what it is. We traffic engineers know a lot of the difference between all these types of names: speed bumps, speed humps, speed cushions, speed tables. But the bumps are what you see in parking lots. Those really short, really abrupt devices. I think there's some installed on Rivendell Court. If you're familiar with that in your neighborhood. Yeah, up on when you go up the hill, yes. So we don't do those on Nashville streets. The devices we're talking about are much smoother. They're still very effective, but much smoother to travel over them. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So once, right. So we choose 50 streets a year. So we do them in two chunks. So if Shire hasn't been selected yet, and it hasn't, then we're we're not actively working on a project for Shire until it's been selected. But our timeline is about a year to from selection to, that's our goal, a year from selection to get it installed. I'm going to go over some more of how that process plays out as well. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just don't see where it's in the country, but they're just gonna speak shine.
So, yeah, I understand.
I'll be
Mhm.
same amount of volume, 2,000, say 1,800 volume is the shot. But most people do go straight. But to some degree, that same 2,000 has upside and in the back there in the front.
Right. There, that traffic's peeling off as it gets down the street because there's homes. I mean, that's where that traffic is going because it.
So I was just
Mhm.
the person that did this survey, or did they not assume that that same amount of cars is gonna be on the other side?
Sure. Yeah, I understand. We have a data process, and that's how we select the streets that qualify based on our prioritization methodology. And so to date, Shire hasn't been selected, but that doesn't mean in the future it wouldn't be. And yes.
Shine from it's more dangerous than Hickory Park. That's for sure. I don't know how to select that. Speeding over the park, into Dodge, sidewalk,
Mhm.
walk around. It's very dangerous to go around.
Well,
Yeah, all
from, mhm.
right is the more so science is the most important thing.
Well, mhm.
We
Well,
have,
so-
excuse me.
Yes.
Some part of the apartments on the top hill, they don't belong to HOA, or we cannot act them or tell them anything. Nothing intentional, I'll leave on the border and do, park at the end. And they could go a short run, but they intentionally come around my house, will speed up and go around there and around. Some stupid stuff, which is not necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's out to everybody who can in the streets, But
Right.
it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I think our goal with this project on Hickory Park Drive is to set a new tone for the neighborhood, right? So that when they're driving on Hickory Park Drive, they're going to be going over maybe perhaps these speed cushions if the neighborhood wants them. That
Davis better than Cushing's,
okay.
in my opinion. No.
Table is not working, it's still there, but nobody.
Mhm.
Or speed humps or tables.
Yeah.
Something to make them slow down.
No, something that's just covering the whole street.
The whole street, so they're not going around them.
Going one side, they're gonna enter the opposite traffic.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
That's good. That's good feedback. Let's move on and then we can answer more questions as we go along. Things that, you may be having issues with outside that fall outside of the traffic calming program. You can report those to the hub. Hopefully you're familiar with the hub Nashville, and, you can reach that, service through 311 on your phone, or there's an app you can download on your phone and report issues like signs been knocked down, the street lights out, you've got a stormwater issue, all those things. They all come into this one system called the hub, and that information is dispatched to the right department and to get those maintenance issues resolved quickly. So it's a great resource and will help you out when you have issues like that. Trash issues, if your trash didn't get picked up, things like that.
What, 15 times, one person.
And then things are related to sidewalks and bikeways. You can contact Anna Dearman with the NDOT. She is the Walking and Biking Program Manager. Her email address is here, Anna.Dearman@Nashville.gov. She's fantastic to work with. And then Beautification Commission, things like Adopt a Street, community service, and neighborhood programs that go to JD Lane. It's jd.lane@nashville.gov. He's the Beautification Commission Coordinator. All right, so now I'm ready to talk about our proposed plan for this section of Hickory Park Drive. And this is a concept because we wanted to come with you with some thoughts about what we think is appropriate for your street based on our field visits and the data we have. And so we're showing here 4 sets of speed cushions. Now I'm hearing about speed tables. And so that, we can take that into consideration. But the trapezoids and the Cs, that represents a location where we would put a set of speed cushions. And these are placed about 500 feet apart, which is kind of our sweet spot on how we space these typically to keep traffic driving at a consistent speed along the length of the street. If we put them too far apart, they slow down and then they speed up between. If we put them too close, people get really annoyed and may do other things. Working from the right side of the page, because that's north, you can see, if to orient you, north is pointing to the right of the page. So that's Rivendell Court going up and down. And then that's the street as it goes across. So we would put a set like right there after Rivendell Court. And then another set a little bit before, in advance of the crosswalk on Hickory Park that goes into the park and the greenway. And then another set between the park entrance and Shire Drive. And then another set on the other side of Shire Drive. And
There's, the
mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the length of the street that was requested for traffic calming. So we kind of focused on that to keep that speed, to keep people from, wanting to speed on that last section of street. But yes, it does stop after Anduin Drive. But this is the kind of the spacing that we typically use on residential streets. So the picture example, it's not the exact, configuration of your street, of course, but it would probably be a set of 3 if we were to do cushions. And then the edge that's striped for bike lanes, we would probably use those white flexible delineators to keep traffic from going around the devices. And I think we would use those whether it was speed tables or speed cushions. The community here is in favor of the tables. These are the cushions. These are the cushions with the gaps.
Cushion's gonna create a problem because
Yeah.
we're gonna try a water paths with the wheels to go and then increase for them.
Mhm.
They can hit each other.
Okay, I'm with you. Yes, one, no
No gaps, goes all the way across. Okay, we can look at that.
Don't give them options. If you kill it, people option, you know, he's gonna go from backside and
Right.
then also front side.
Also,
Yes.
is there a way to put that split circle where? You know.
The traffic circle. I'll flip back, to show what he's talking about, I think. Are you talking about the circle?
This.
We can look at that,
Is there where it happens, right?
I would believe the Shire Drive and Hickory Park would slow down the traffic circle. Well, on and
That
off.
one's-
There's people cutting off the corners on incoming traffic. I've seen two accidents.
mm-hmm,
There's people cutting that corner coming up the hill. So this will slow them down a lot. I was myself involved, but one coming down, they didn't stop, and the school bus wasn't on the stop. I was almost in the stop. The school bus avoiding the person coming down the hill, didn't want to stop at all.
mm-hmm. So,
tearing down that hill, it's bad.
okay, we can look at traffic circles. Like I said, when I talked about this, tool, there's a lot of things we have to look at. Variables. So, we'll have to measure and see if we can get the vehicles to go around, if it's wide enough to fit that in. And I'm hearing school buses, we have to make sure school buses can navigate through the intersection. That can be a challenge.
But the road is big.
The road is big. It is. So, we'll definitely take that under.
Also, I have maybe Jackson, there's a telephone pole, utility pole section. Put some cameras on there. Even fake camera also. Yeah, it's just blinking blue.
Well, that's not in our toolbox, but, you can maybe speak with the, MNPD about that.
You can be a police car right next to the door, and we'll still, there's no police officer. I've seen a million times.
Okay. Do we have any questions in the chat, Carter? Okay, great. Okay,
I think
Um,
that is discipline for sure.
So,
it's
my-
a good thing to look at. Mhm.
question. So Hickory Park Drive is your next project coming up. After this, Shire Drive has been selected, right? So how long
Shire Drive has not been selected,
not been selected?
not been selected.
what
So,
is the major role for the subdivision? I work as the president for that several years. So, because a lot of people, they brought complaints, that they used to text, they used to call me. That's the main road actually, not the Hickory Park Drive. So because there, you don't see the houses, there are open space, so more danger, there are people that feel is kids. Sometimes suddenly they run out, you never know. So you cannot control all the time, you cannot monitor them. So in that case, the guys, they keep on driving 45 miles per hour. Speed, MPS. So we have to control that shared drive. That's the main road because of the townhouse that is connected at the end, located at the end of the shared drive. The people from those neighborhood at townhouse, they also drive same, and we don't have any other exit. We have only one exit. So they drive so fast. That's why that's a very dangerous road that all the neighborhood they feel about. So that has been our concern, and we want to address that as soon as possible. That's the thing, but I don't know how you guys have selected that Hickory Park Drive from the standpoint of that townhouse of revenue to the end of the Hickory Park Drive. But that is not more important than the Shire Drive. That everybody, if you ask the people sitting around this table, even they will tell, even if you want me to bring 40 families at the same time, that I can do it, they will complain about Shire Drive. So we have to address that road as a main concern.
we, like I said, we have a data-driven process, and Shire was looked at and just not selected based on our criteria. But it remains as a request and will be evaluated in the next round.
We put some money into it.
And that's why we have a data-driven process, because we don't do that. And you know, it's not a first request gets the first treatment. We have to demonstrate this need and in order to allocate the funds. And you know, there's like I said earlier, we have over 400 streets that have requested traffic calming, so that's how we have to select based on that.
First priority.
I understand all,
We can resubmit the application for that, or still the website that we submitted a long time ago works for you?
yeah, it still works. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the program and the timeline now. And we've pretty well established the application process, but we do have 2 windows a year. We just closed an application window at the end of March. So the next one will be sometime in July or August, I believe. So we will confirm whether Shire is on there or not, and if not, resubmit. But I think it is. You know, it's on there, as you've said. But this is a process which residents apply. So the department is not going out and deciding where traffic calming goes. We're putting it in places where residents have made that request and have said they want traffic calming. And then we do the prioritization process that we talked about and make those selections twice a year based on the funding that council has been allocating very heavily to the traffic calming program lately. So we've been able to do a lot more streets than we have in the past. So we're slowly getting there and getting a lot of these streets with needs done through this program. So now what we're doing here in the red is our meeting number 1. So that we sent our postcards to you all that live on Hickory Park Drive to come learn about the program and the process and the plan. And then what we're doing at this meeting is giving you that information, showing you our concept, and getting information back from you about, did you like it, or how do we need to modify it to address what the community is looking for within our toolbox. And then from here, we'll leave this meeting and we will make a more refined plan, a detailed plan showing exactly where these devices would go, do some measurements, figure out what the configuration would be. We'll look into the feedback that we've received about traffic circles and speed tables, as opposed to the cushions that we've recommended initially. And then we will get ready to have meeting number 2, and we'll communicate and coordinate with our neighborhood leads about setting that date up and time, and we'll send those postcards out again to advertise the meeting and let you know when it is, and it'll also be a hybrid meeting, or it could be virtual only, but whatever the community wants. But and we'll do that again, and that's when we'll present that more detailed plan to you. Then from there, if we're all happy with the plan, want to move forward, the process is to do an online ballot, and that is done with a postcard as well. Those that are eligible to vote on the plan will get a postcard. It'll have a unique ID and information on how to vote online. It's a 6-week window, so it starts and it ends, and then we move forward to the next step. So it's not this drawn out process. It's a very defined period of time. The card will say when the ballot closes. So as soon as you get it, vote, don't forget. And you can vote yes or no. And if 66% of the people that vote are in favor of the project, then it moves forward towards construction. And then the construction period of time can take a little while because we have to order the materials and then have them installed. But NDOT's working on speeding that process up. We've had a big backlog that we're churning through right now, but the construction phase could last about 6 months once we've gone to ballot. Yes.
Construction. So they live to the driving over sharp edges on the street before they're making the final payment. That's so big gap. But they cannot make the final in like a 2 days or 5 days, everything in one.
Mm-hmm.
If they live in the sharp edges, or no, they do that.
Oh, you mean the milled pavement?
Correct.
Yes. And they mill it and then,
Construction, they leave it open, for the final payment, like.
yeah.
something, And it takes like a, or 4 weeks sometimes until they finally, when the shafts are raised.
Well, I don't know. I can't answer much about paving because I'm not working with the paving
Sure.
folks. I'm a consultant for NDOT, yes. But I wouldn't be able to answer that questions. Nash,
Your office is on the Dutchess Street.
no.
There's the
I-
Department of Transportation in the 505 Dutchess Street.
Right, that's TDOT.
Oh, that's TDOT.
But regarding paving, sorry, I can't answer your questions about that, but I understand it can be frustrating for it to take a long time. The lucky thing with these rubberized devices that we drill into the pavement, they go pretty quick. The contractors it takes about a week to get one street installed. So they'll do a set at a time and get through it as fast as they can. So it's not a long period of time. Yes.
The meeting number 2, is there just decision, meaning you don't have plan?
That's typically how we do it because since we start with the concept and we're listening to getting your feedback and we're going to do our engineering part with the plan, it typically moves along after that. And our goal is to present something to you all that you're happy with based on what we're hearing this evening. Mm-hmm. Is it? Okay, so the question that came in the chat box is about the radar feedback sign that was installed for a day and then taken down. That was probably a request for the speed trailer that I think the city has 4 or 5 of those that they move around from street to street every week. So I don't know the specific details and dates and times of when that was installed, but that's how that works. Yeah. So that's how that program works, or that tool that we use. It doesn't stay any longer than a week, but maybe even less. So we use it just for information for drivers, similar to the radar feedback signs that we would install. Yeah, so it's a reminder for drivers that they're speeding. And we do hear that comment sometimes when we talk to neighborhoods that people might use it as a game, and that's not its intention, of course. Mm-hmm. Oh, how do we collect the speeds? Yes, we don't use the speed trailers to collect the speeds when we're doing our data collection to identify which streets get selected. We use these pneumatic tubes that we stretch across the street, and they measure the direction of travel as well as the volume and the speed of every vehicle that goes over it. Yes, question in the back?
I can't remember going through this, but is this 100% funded? Partial or?
It is funded by NDOT's budget, yes. This is a funded project as long as there's neighborhood support through our balloting process, it will get installed. We don't design it and then wait for funding. This is a funded project. That's why we know how many we can select every year. It's based on the budget that's been allocated to the program. Yes. Yes.
66%.
Mm-hmm. So that's a great question. I want to clarify. It's not 66% of your homeowners that vote. It's 66% of those that vote, that were eligible to vote. So yeah, the criteria for voting is you have to have property fronting the street that's getting the traffic calming, or not fronting, but a property line. So a corner property that may have an address on Shire, but still has property, I'm just making this up, but may have an edge on Hickory Park. So it's just the properties along Hickory Park Drive.
Prior doesn't matter. Holding on shop for an hour.
So
Yeah, I think, from, I think he could fire that, other than him, or from other, like.
So you got a postcard in the mail?
Same egress, putting back. Exception they would ever make.
We don't,
Most neighborhoods would have.
right. We don't really allow those other streets or properties to vote because they're not as affected by the device like cul-de-sacs. We typically do not include cul-de-sacs in the voting process because they may be the culprits because it's not their street they're speeding on. So we're trying to make this the way it's laid out. We're trying to make it as easy but as fair as possible. So that's kind of how that was done. So that again, it's 66% of the people that vote need to be in favor of the project. We don't necessarily need 66% of the eligible voters to vote, although that would be great. More voting, the better, because then they'll be aware of the project and so forth. But the ballots will be sent by postcard with access to the online ballot. And there'll be a unique ID that's associated with their address. And that's how, we make sure there's not double voting and that sort of thing. Sure, we can show you, provide that, share that information, but and at our next meeting, we typically show a map of all the properties that will be getting the postcard. And then we certainly encourage you to, do door knocks or anything you want to do to just remind people to vote and participate.
So if they don't get.
Yeah, if you're looking for side drive, my house is not the.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't get the 66, they don't get speed.
Okay, so if 4 people vote and yeah, 4 people vote and 3 want it and 1 says no, then it goes forward.
Majority rules.
66%, super majority, the 66%. What's the timeline? So we're gonna go back and do our detailed design and some more field work.
You'll get notified.
You'll get notified about the next meeting. At least we send the postcards to the people that are eligible to vote as well.
Make sure people living in don't park that.
And then from there, it's 2 weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks, and then the ballots go out after that next meeting. So we can have the second meeting, we'll probably have the second meeting in 2 months. I'm about,
Want to know more project?
yes, we'll show more zoomed in detail of the project, the devices that, where they'll go. So you can kind of see it's between this house and this house, that sort of thing. And then we'll go forward from there.
Yeah. Speak for it.
So have I been clear enough about the ballots and the votes? How that works? Okay. And we will have more information about that as well, at our next meeting. We'll show the map of all the properties that will be getting the postcard to vote. Mm-hmm. Right. Not unless you have like a side property. Yeah. Yes, yes, you get to vote. You get to vote. Let's see. I hit everything on there. So this is my contact information and Gil Thomas's contact information. He is the program manager for NDOT, the Nashville Department of Transportation. And he really keeps track of when projects are getting constructed and the timeline on that, as well as the votes. He manages the votes and will let the neighborhood know the results of the votes, but also this QR code goes to the address down here that's a little bit off my screen in the room here, but it's TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. It's a host of information about this program there. That's where plans will be posted. So you'll be able to review the PDFs of the plans before voting. You'll have access to see that plan, and there'll be a direct link from the ballot. So anyone that's not really familiar will be able to say, oh, I want to know what I'm voting on before I vote. So that's on our website. The program manual's on the website, the tracker to see which streets have requested traffic calming, which streets have been selected. That's all on that website there. And then we have our NDOT socials there for you to follow along. Lots of posts about installs of these traffic calming devices because we're installing about 1 street a week right now. And one other tidbit of information about the ballot, just to let you know how it's been going lately. Out of our, I think it's 90+ streets that we've balloted for traffic calming, we have a 90% yes, positive rate. So if the street, for whatever reason, the vote is not in favor of the project that's been designed, we will come in and see if there's some other non-intrusive measures like the radar feedback signs and things like, and paint and markings and things that we could do instead of the vertical measures. So only the vertical measures and things that are installed in the street require the vote. Yes. Sure. They last a long time. I think the warranty maybe like 5 years or so, but they last a lot longer than that. We've got some that have been in Nashville for 10 years and still are very effective. But the great thing about them being modular is maybe one piece gets damaged or one screw gets pulled, and NDOT can go in and just fix and repair that piece.
Hold on for
As far as like a maintenance,
it? No. I'm talking
Oh.
when the job is finished.
yes.
Anybody comes to inspect that and control?
Oh, yes. NDOT has inspectors that inspect the installation. Yes.
Shit, I'm not, so many negligent working on it.
Well, I think that our team's been doing really well, or NDOT's team has been doing really well in installing these devices. We've had a lot of great feedback. on the streets that have been selected and installed lately, so.
About 1,000 so miles that we ever.
All right, are there any other questions about the
Yeah.
program? Yes.
The important point we come in here, we haven't safety. Some people, they drive straight like this, they drive maybe 50, 60, young, especially young people. So we need bridge.
So you need what?
Talking about speed.
Oh, speed humps for the safety. Yes, we think these devices do make the street safer because they slow people down. Yes.
Maybe he's talking about the shared drive.
Oh, he's still trying to talk about Shire. Okay.
Young people,
It's been done for this selection. That announcement's happened, but it will be in the queue for.
How, guys, can you show me the map? How you guys can sell it that way? We don't have any, because only the left side, there is a house on the resident or the townhouse. There's already, I saw the bomb, there's just like a 20 house on the townhome, not more than 20. But they have already the bomb, but we have, from top to bottom, the side drive is like almost 50, 60 houses on the both side. So how they can sell it about the, and not the side drive?
It's about the data.
Criminal road, all the major point is the side drive, main way is the side drive, because you guys not seen that or not. So there's a highway, there's a top hill, and they come very fast, and there's a, from the bottom, they go up very fast, so that is the problem we have there.
Yeah, yeah.
they drive
It's 15? All right. I think I'm gonna wrap up the meeting, but I'm happy to stick around and answer more questions if anyone has any, but, we'll be in contact. Gil will be in contact. Yeah, excuse me.
And everybody's upset about Shire. Got denied. Everything got denied. Said we had 430
Mm-hmm.
across central Nashville. They said there was only 2 in this area that got picked. I understand everybody's upset. I understand Shire is very important. You have to start somewhere. Get this thing and maybe Shire would do it, but we got denied the first time, and chances are you got lucky to get it the second time. So you're up against so many different. Just you got trouble with Shire and stuff like that, but everybody else is Metro Nashville. We got to start somewhere, and we got lucky, got picked this time. Hopefully next time I'll get sure.
Yes, thank you for that. We do have great demand and need across the city, so we're trying to do it in a equitable way to identify which streets have the need. So we're done.
As far as street clearing, that.
So one thing is that's why we use the warning signs with the placement of them, but you're talking about the street, right? What they do they will pick up and skip the device, from what I understand. They know where the devices are, those that are operating the equipment that's shoveling the snow, the plows. Yes, thank you. The plows. And so they know, and so they don't scrape it up, essentially. So. So, okay. So like I said, we will do our design refinement, and we will reach back out to schedule another meeting. You will get advertisements for the meeting. Those on Hickory Park Drive will get the advertisements for the meeting, and then we'll go from there based on our timeline.
Start up next project.
Yes. We hear you. Thank you. Thank you all for your time, and congrats on being selected on Hickory Park Drive. I mean, it really is you got to start somewhere, exactly.
And in my responsibility.